Opposed.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the January 28th, 2019 Board of Selectmen's meeting. On the agenda tonight, we only have one item, and that is discussion and determination regarding the candidates for town administrator. So, I usually go down the line, but who would like to begin discussion? Or I'll go down the line.
I'm always first, so I'll let somebody else go first.
That's what I meant. Mary?
Okay. First, I want to say that I thought the search committee did a great job, as did Paradigm, in bringing forth some very qualified candidates. I thought all three are very qualified. I was very pleased with the finalists, and I think all of them have different attributes, different assets, and I think all of them would do a good job. And I'm not trying to squirm out of my own views, but if for any reason one of them weren't available, I'm comfortable with all three. I'm very pleased that two of them have masters. Ron has the degree in business administration and that further certificate. I think they all bring to the table something a little bit different. Ron certainly, to me, is highly committed to Sturbridge. He lives in Holland. He's got a daughter in the school system, so I don't question that he would be very good at being the face of Sturbridge. Kim's very bright, high energy. She's been in a town where she has to do a lot herself, which was pretty evident, and so I know she would be hands-on. I do think that we have a lot more going on in our town than what she's accustomed to in Mendon. That's not to say that she couldn't do it. I know she was very good at being the assistant town administrator in Killingly. But she did a TIF for the first time. A lot of things are first impression there. And I think that our town really belies the amount of people here, in the sense that, you know, all of our hotels, all of our restaurants, we're the hub of central Mass, and I think that we're a very busy community. So now I'll get back, and now I'll go down to Jeff. I think Jeff's experience, in my view, puts him somewhat in a different, I don't want to say league, but I think that his experience is unmatched by the other two candidates. He's had 27 years of experience in public administration. The other two have definitely had experience, but they pale in comparison to his experience. I think the one concern would be, of course, he hasn't had direct experience in town meeting form of government that occurs in Massachusetts, but I think somebody that has had that many years of experience and a master's in public administration could make the transition. But that would be my only concern there. I liked the way he answered all of the myriad of questions that were presented to him. I thought they were thoughtful, deliberate, and intelligent. I thought he answered Chase's question about economic development, and I think Priscilla's also had a question related to economic development vis-a-vis people who want a lot of it versus those that want to keep Sturbridge, smaller, quainter. And I liked his answer on that, because he said that you always need a sense of balance. There are areas of town that clearly should develop, and then there'll be areas of town that you don't want to see development. You have to listen to the people, and you have to, reach that compromise. His background coming from Connecticut, that's a very historic town, and I think that although it's much larger, it mirrors a lot in terms of Sturbridge, wanting growth, but yet having that historic aspect of the town, which I think he would be attentive to. So, I think all three are very qualified, but my own view would be that I think Jeff's experience would make him, in this instance, probably would be my first choice. But again, depending upon the views of the board, it's certainly not a vote against the other two, because I feel that they're also very qualified. And I would get into their pros and cons a little more after I hear what everybody has to say. But if I had to choose one at this point, I would have to say it would be Jeff Bridges.
Well, thank you for starting, Mary. Mike?
Yeah, I looked at it like, who has the best qualifications, and so I did a spreadsheet on the highest level of education, municipal manager experience, the number of years of experience, which Mary mentioned. How many jobs they've had in the last 15 years was a factor. And then also their professional credentials, whether they're an ICMA credentialed or other certifications that they may have. And also, I took into account their interview performance. And, quite frankly, I think they all performed well and gave direct answers, but none of them blew it away like Leon did last time. Leon had facts and figures, and I think he had an excellent interview. And this time, I think we had very good performance. I rated them, they all rated pretty much equal as far as their performance. When I did my rating, the one that scored highest is Kimberly Newman. She does have a master's degree in public administration. I know Mr. Bridges also has a master's degree from a small college in upstate New York, at Marist College. And I know somebody that lives near there, and I went to their website, and I think they only have an online MPA, and it's. But he did score. Mr. Bridges did score very high on, over having between 20 and 30 years of experience. Kimberly Newman had between 10 and 20 years of experience, which I think is adequate for Sturbridge. And Mr. San Angelo had less than 10 years of experience as a municipal manager, although he's worked been a state representative in Connecticut. But he has just about 10 years experience, just under 10 years. So it was very close. On the my scoring system, there's one point difference between Mr. Bridges and Ms. Newman. So it was a very close score. Mr. San Angelo scored somewhat behind those two. So I would agree with Mary that the two top candidates are Ms. Newman and Mr. Bridges. Only I scored Ms. Newman just slightly higher, and it was very, very close.
Chase?
Okay. I'd like to start off by thanking the search committee that we had in Paradigm, and I'd like to talk about the three candidates a little in a positive note. I felt that they all interviewed very well. All three of them, I felt, answered the questions properly. I was happy with all answers that they gave. I felt that Ron brought a lot of energy. He interviewed very well. He's very personable. He's very familiar with the town, the community. I saw him at that MMA meeting, and he was talking to everybody out there, and that's a good quality. Kim Newman, she's from a small town in Massachusetts. She's familiar with Massachusetts government. She wants to come to Sturbridge. I thought she interviewed very well. But for me, my top candidate is Jeff Bridges. I liked his interview. I liked his answers. Weathersfield, Connecticut, I feel, is a historic town in Connecticut that also has a heavy commercial district to it. I feel the needs that Sturbridge have moving forward as far as our Route 20 project, the field projects, the senior citizen projects. I feel like Jeff Bridges has the most experience to help this town get what we need, and that he was my top candidate.
Okay, Chase. Priscilla?
I basically weighed out two candidates. Ron San Angelo did interview well. His focus is project management, and I didn't hear anything about day-to-day life. To his disadvantage, I think, is that he comes from the next town. And what I say that is, unfortunately, when you come that close, everyone knows your business. Everyone knows what you do in that community or don't do. I have a hard time considering him for Sturbridge because I don't feel he has day-to-day background. He's great at project management, and if you have projects, that's all well and good, but what happens when that isn't our focus? So it brings it down to Kim and to Jeff. Jeff is experienced. He does come from a larger community. The sense I got from him was he listens to people, but I didn't hear much about what to do. I got a sense that if Sturbridge took him now, he might consider it, but I'm not sure that that's really his number one pick. I got that sense it may not be. So I have a little hard time, and also I do think it's a disadvantage to us that we didn't see him in person. I know we could see him on Skype, you could talk to him, you know what he looks like, I get all that, and Skype is the wave. However, somehow when you see people in person, sometimes you see their mannerisms a little bit different, and there's questions I wish I had asked now, and if he had been here, you might think about him at the time, because they'll be hanging around. I personally like Kim. I would be like with Mike. I think the thing that caught my attention, she walked in, she had control of the meeting. She came over, she shook hands with everyone, she introduced herself. She doesn't seem to, she has high energy. She doesn't seem to be worried about getting her hands dirty and digging in. I think she finds balance in her work. I think she's choosing to go higher in the sense that it's a bigger challenge. She's done well where she is. And unfortunately, when you're good at what you do and you do well and you have success, you want a bigger challenge. That goes without saying. And so I personally, she would be my number one choice for consideration. In my opinion, there were really two candidates to consider, and it was her and Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm of the opinion of most people. I did settle on two candidates, Jeff and Kim. Ron, I don't think really has as much experience, and he's left places not on mutual agreements all the time, and that can happen once, but when it happens more than once, you have to kind of wonder the interaction between him and committees and boards. Kim, I thought, was personable. I don't believe she has the experience that I would be satisfied for Sturbridge. Mendon is a smaller community. Some of the other places she has been are small. And she did say one thing that really kind of bothered me, and I don't think she meant it. I hope she didn't mean it. When she was talking about the hours are great. The hours aren't great being a TA or a TM. They're long hours, even away from the office. I was impressed with Jeff, even though we Skyped him. He spoke well. He answered the questions that were asked, I thought, very thoughtfully. And there was one thing that he impressed me. He is really interested in a long-term commitment. And we do know his daughter's a junior in high school, and that's at least this year and next year. But as he said, he's looking for 5 to 8 years. He is, I believe, has more experience and qualifications than the other two. So my opinion, Jeff is my first choice. Okay. Anyone else want to add anything? Well, Mary?
I still stand behind Jeff as my candidate, too, but I do want to say, I didn't share the concerns of some of you with respect to Ron. I thought Ron and Kim were both very qualified, and so I know I don't think Chase, I don't know if we all ranked them 1, 2, 3. Some said that it was between 2, and I just want to say for the record that I think that he is equally qualified, and the fact that, Southbridge has had some, problems in the past with their schools, with government, and the fact that he's been able to stay for 4 years, I think is a feather in his cap in terms of his diplomacy, and I agree with Chase, his ability to get along with people. So I just wanted to say that, but I feel like Jeff, I agree with Mary. I'm pleased that although he wants to leave his daughter in the same school system for her senior year, which as a parent, I would feel exactly the same way, he was very quick to point out, both at the search committee and here, that after that, he will move. And so I liked that flexibility. He wants to move to a New England town. And we even questioned him at the search committee. His wife's a teacher in West Hartford, and I specifically asked, would you be commuting because of your wife's job? And he said, no, we're looking, to move. So I take him at his word, and I like the fact that he's willing to make that kind of a commitment. And he has just a wealth of experience with building. I mean, he was instrumental in building their new school. In the past, he's built a library, a public safety building. I think it was a fire department. You inquired how many collective bargaining agreements he's negotiated, and it was in the double digits. So, and I can appreciate, Priscilla's concern that it's a Skype interview. I did get the benefit of being on the search committee when he was in town to have the face-to-face that everybody else didn't. But, this is the future. I mean, and I have a son in college. We have to, and Skype interviews are kind of the way things are being done because they don't want to fly kids out, they don't want to pay the money, so a lot is done that way. And unfortunately, being in Alaska, I wouldn't want that to be the reason that he wasn't chosen, because we're going to have to give in to technology at some point.
Okay, Mary, I just want to clarify one point, though, not to take anything away from Ron, but the reason he's been there for 4 years is because the
mistake.
council
They made a mistake.
failed to notify him that his contract wasn't going to be
Exactly.
renewed. So it was renewed automatically for another year, but they haven't gone after him to renew. I don't disagree, he's very personable. I was, saw him in the same places down in Boston, and he interacts with people fine, but as far as experience, I don't think he has it for Sturbridge. And even Kim, I think, if she had more experience, I just wholeheartedly think that Jeff has a wealth of experience and willing to give it to the town. He even said before they move that he would rent a place temporarily here to be close by. Okay, any other comments?
Yeah,
Mike?
well, I just wanted to say a few things, because you're discounting Kim Newman's experience working for a smaller community. Mendon isn't that much smaller than Sturbridge. It's only a couple thousand people.
4,000 less.
Well, it's more than 6,000 people. It's closer to 8,000, I believe.
And we're 10,000
And
something.
yeah, so it's not 4,000, it's only,
No,
and-
it's 6,000. 6,100, I believe.
oh, is it? Well, anyhow, town meeting form of government is, works, because I've worked in both the city form of government and town meeting. And town meeting form of government and managing a town meeting form of government is considerably different than going to town council and, to get appropriations and also, experience in Massachusetts should be a big factor in our decision, because Massachusetts is, quite different in the way in the way Massachusetts operates town meeting than it would be in most other states. Massachusetts is quite unique with, home rule stuff, and there's a long learning curve to get into knowing how things operate, how the laws are in Massachusetts, if somebody is coming from another state. So I just, one of the advantages we had with Leon is all of his experience was in Massachusetts, and he was right on top of it. And I think somebody coming in from another state, we should weigh that with the factor of somebody working in a smaller community. I think working in a smaller community with town meeting form of government is more of an advantage than coming from a big city with a city form of government.
Well, I think these people, don't forget, they're all professionals, and a lot of the references spoke to the adaptability of Mr. Bridges, because he had been in other states too. And Kim also had been in other states.
Right.
Going from Weathersfield to a town meeting is not quite that big of a jump. But, I mean, they're all professionals, they're adaptable. I know when we interviewed Leon, there was one candidate that we were quite as impressed with. But, again, he came from out of state, but he did get a job someplace and had no trouble adapting to Massachusetts. Okay, anything else? Priscilla?
It is 6,000, I just Googled, well.
Yeah.
6,094 as of 2017.
Yeah,
Not that
6,100. No, but it is.
just to set the record straight,
Yeah,
That's as of
2017, so it's a
Oh.
little bit dated.
I mean, I agree with Mike. There was a couple of things on Jeff that, one was that he does do collective bargaining, which is good, but that 3 unions had to go to arbitration. We've been fortunate, we haven't had that issue. And, I mean, that's one. There was a couple of other things. What I did like about Kim are some of the things that Mike said. As far as, as far as Ron Sanangelo, he is personable, and that, you got to give him that, but you got to also know how to work with your council. And I will put politics as first. It's political. There's no two ways about it. These positions are very political sometimes. And, I mean, you've lived this your life, Ted. You know what I'm saying. But when you get new boards, when you have when you transition new boards, if you're good at your job, you should be able to reach some consensus. And Southbridge had an election last year where a lot of those people changed and consensus still wasn't reached. So he's out of my vision totally for many of those reasons. But that's just I agree about the Massachusetts concept. I think it's a plus. But, it is what it is, and the system is what it is, and the process was what it was. So unless we change our process or develop it, take some of the kinks out, it is what it is.
Ted not used that earlier. It's the in expression now. Any other comments? Somebody willing to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Jeff Bridges to the town administrator position.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
Can I just say?
Sure.
I'm gonna go with this for a front. He's not my number one choice. I hope we do a contract that reflects some monitoring a little bit along the way and get feedback from our staff in the process of the evaluation. I'd like to see like a 6-month evaluation. But I would go to just, for the sake of not having a discord and not having him come in to split decisions, I will support the vote even though, again, he's not my choice. And I would like the minutes to reflect that. Janae, please?
Okay, any other discussion? Excuse me. All in favor? Okay, 5-0. Okay, it's not 8 o'clock, Priscilla.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised.
I can't believe it's
I
not
am
9, to be
shocked.
honest
Yeah,
with you.
right. I know. I am shocked, yeah.
Okay, Priscilla, you're on.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, now,
What a surprise.